Four Weddings and a Funeral, and the new movie that opens today, Mickey Blue Eyes. Will you welcome Hugh Grant? Well, things are going great for you, and all the movies are flying, and we'll talk about the new one in a minute. But, you know, when we do these things, obviously we get little notes about you, little bits of research.
Yes.
And I've found one or two things about you, Hugh, that I didn't know. For instance, the school plays. You actually played the Julie Andrews part in a school play. You played Bridget Von Trapp,
No, the Julie Andrews part is, of course, Maria Von Trapp.
Of course.
And that's the part I wanted.
Yeah, you wanted that?
Yeah, I was furious I didn't get it. I ended up playing the second youngest daughter, who is actually Brigitte Von Trapp. But I was...
Could you have managed... Have you got the voice for that?
Not as well as you can clearly do it. No.
It seems to me you were a game fella because you were at an all-boys school and usually you ended up playing the female leads. Why? Why you?
I don't know. Some boys are born like that. They like to dress in women's clothes, and I'm like that. I didn't know we were going to get that deep on this programme. But I don't know why. It was a boys' school. You know, it happens. And at that stage, I looked nicer than anyone else in the school.
You probably looked prettier then.
Yeah, I was undersized and in a white dress with a blue satin sash. I was lovely.
I want a signed picture of that. While you were waiting for your breaks to come along in the movie business, you wrote... This is something else I didn't found out about you. Yeah. You wrote commercials. Is this radio or television commercials?
Radio, yeah. I used to write...
What products? What?
Oh, God, we did millions. We did... Am I allowed to say products?
Oh, of course.
Oh, we did Red Stripe Lager, and we did Mighty White Sliced Bread. I don't know if that still exists.
No, I don't think it does.
You remember Mighty White Sliced Bread with all the goodness of brown but the great taste of white?
Did you do that? Did you write that?
No, we were given those terrible strap lines, and we had to write the 28 seconds that led up to it. And
well, that bread led to small rolls, didn't it? Sorry about that.
I love a joke.
Sorry about that. Well, that's better than a long loaf. You did some stand-up comedy. You've been quite a lad. I mean, you've dabbled in a lot of things. With a group, wasn't there a group?
Yeah, it wasn't stand-up. It was a group. We were called the Jockeys of Norfolk, and we used to play in little pubs around London. Lots of people were doing it then. You know, Mike Myers of Austin Powers. He used to go Malarkey and Myers, and then the Jockeys of Norfolk. And
what sort of things would you do?
Well, they were sketches. It would be stuff like. We did a nativity play, but in the manner of an Ealing Studios comedy of the 1940s. So the angel Gabriel would come down and say to Mary, "Now look here, I've got some very important news for you. You're going to have a baby." And she'd say, "Are you tight?" And then, you know, all the shepherds would talk, "Oh, blimey, it's parky tonight." It was like that. So it was fun.
But you moved on. You moved on, and again a word which was new for me connecting with you. Yeah. You moved on to things you called Euro puddings.
Yes.
What are Euro puddings, Hugh?
Well, I mean, yeah, there was a phase in my life when... they don't make so many of them anymore, but, you know, it was like films with a Spanish director, an English cast, and an Italian, Italian script or something. And the idea was that they would sell well in America. They never did. They were always... abysmal, and I did quite a few of them. But one of them I met Elizabeth on, so that has a special appeal.
So that was a saving grace. I hear there was some terrible dialogue that you had to dish out in some of those early movies.
I used to say things like, "Deep down in the lake, there is slime and weed, but when you look at the surface, you see only your own reflection. That is how you are, Mary." And I mean, it's rubbish. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And I remember there was the Spanish director who spoke no English. He had to have a translator, who was the most tactless man I've ever met in my life. And the Spanish director would say something to the translator to say to one of the actors. And then this translator would come up and he'd say, "Gonzalo says, could you be less wooden?" And, you know, you don't say that to actors. It was horrible.
Keep them happy, you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just say you met Elizabeth in one of these Euro puddings, Elizabeth Hurley, your girlfriend. And she now is the producer I mean, she's been a long time girlfriend. She's now the producer of the new movie, Mickey Blue Eyes. Right?
Yes.
Which is out. What's that about, and what are you playing it?
Well, it's a mob movie, really. It's a romantic movie, a romantic comedy involving the mob. I'm an English guy living in New York, working in an auction house.
So it's mafia we're talking in New York?
Yes.
Mafia.
Well, yes. I fall in love with this very sexy girl from Brooklyn, and everything's great until I discover that her father is a prominent juice man for the mob. Which, as I'm sure you know, is the guy who extracts money and favours and that kind of stuff. And it's about my descent into mafia hell, and it's a kind of Clash of Worlds film, Brit meets mob.
Yeah. And this is a little clip here, which is so funny, it's so cute. Have a look at this.
I was wondering if you could help me out with a special arrangement. I've got this fortune, and I wondered if you could stick it in one of your fortune cookies. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Eat cookie.
That's all right. I'm sure she will when she's ready.
Well,
Thank
no,
you.
you have it.
No, you eat cookie.
I don't want to.
老板娘，你们叫他把它打开，
那个是肥嘅啊，乜啲冇咁到嘛？Eat cookie.
No, I'm not hungry.
Gina, you know, I think the best thing is to play along.
No, I don't feel like taking orders from the waitress.
Not waitress, owner. Eat cookie.
You were a little concerned that we should have set that up, but the audience were laughing, and I think they know that ring has gone in. You wanted to get engaged, it was to be a surprise.
Yeah, that's right. But it was an incredibly intelligent audience. I love you.
You know, I heard this strange story that you thought at one time during the making of the movie that James Caan, who was in The Godfather, right, had a crush on you. Must be right, Hugh. Well, this is what the stories that come to me.
No, it's just because he's always given me such a hard time for being, you know, wimpy. And I'd wear a beautiful shirt on the set, and he'd say, "Why are you wearing a girl's blouse?" and all that. So I get my revenge by saying that I had the impression that, you know, there's a lot of hugging and kissing in mob films. Yeah. I started to get the impression halfway through the film that his hugs were lasting a little bit longer than they needed to. You know, it happens on films. It happens. You know, you're in a very close environment, and these things can happen. And
yes.
It's embarrassing. I used to get back to the apartment and find him curled up in a ball outside my front door. And yeah, what do you do? What do you do? And then the poem starts.
Step over it.
Yeah.
Change the subject. Notting Hill. I know you don't like going on about your leading ladies, but Julia Roberts apparently had an original way of amusing herself between takes with you. Is that right?
She was another actor, rather like James Caan, who didn't have enough respect for me, I didn't feel.
No?
And, yeah, she used to loosen me up by pulling my hair and tweaking my nipples and giving me... Tweaking my nipples, which is, you know, it's fine. I took it well, but I thought it was unfair because it's not something I could really do to her, you know.
No. I don't think you could have done that. No. Very British of you to refrain.
Yeah.
Could you know it's all happening for you, or would you plan or ever think about moving to Hollywood, living there?
No, I don't think so. I'm not crazy about LA, I must say. I feel increasingly English. The older I get, the more and more English I get. And flying back a couple of days ago, I can't sleep on the plane just because I'm so excited to be back. And I know any minute now I'm going to have a toffee crisp, you know. And,
and watch Fulham play.
And watch Fulham, yeah.
Some actors pretend they don't like love scenes. I get the, it's just another day at the office.
Yes.
That's what they tell me. But you're quoted as, I think you said, kissing strangers, these are your words, I think. Kissing strangers is somewhat of a turn-on.
Yes, well, you have to be careful. You can't just walk down the street and start kissing people. I've done that, and it's...
I was referring to the mood.
Yeah, no, I mean, people, yeah, actors always with these questions say, "Oh no, it's just business, you know, and you're under the lights." But I find it quite erotic, really, strange. I mean, what's really weird is in Mickey Blue Eyes doing love scenes with very beautiful Jean Triplehorn, and having Elizabeth standing just out of shot, saying, "Go on, make it dirtier, go on, put your tongue in." And that's that's really odd. Yeah, that's the nearest I've ever come to a threesome, and I quite enjoyed it.
It seems to me, there's a natural... This is where all that experience years ago during the comedy lines is going to come into play. And you're going to concentrate more on comedy now, aren't you? The light romantic, the kind of Cary Grant, David Niven roles?
Yeah. I think. Well, you know, I think if I have a place in the business, it's when there are a few laughs around. And Mickey Blue Eyes is, well, it's just a plain funny film, and I have slightly pushed at least my own envelope in that. I'm doing things I haven't done before, like I take my clothes off and massage my buttocks in one scene.
Really? Steady, girls, steady.
Who said wow? Was it you? Yes. I'm sorry.
It's quite all right.
You know, my mum has to come to all my interviews, and
Sit still, Mum.
It's no, but it was, and it was you know, it makes you nervous when we put the film together. We thought, my God, should we take this scene out because maybe an American audience will be revolted by Hugh Grant taking his clothes off and massaging his buttocks. And then in the second preview, we did actually put it in, and they really loved it. And I developed rather a taste for it. In fact, I'm doing some videos on the side that I think you might like.
Now then, I know you're doing some more comedy. There's another movie in the pipeline. You're going to star in a Woody Allen movie. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I've just done it, actually. I
You've
just did my bit. I'm not the lead part. I'm a kind of medium-sized part. And it's pretty riveting, actually, you know, because he's been a massive hero of my life, Woody Allen. I don't know, I've only had 3 recurring celebrity dreams in my life. I'm afraid one of them isn't you. Maybe, as from tonight, it might.
I'll accept this disappointment with the...
But one of them was always Olga Korbut, the gymnast.
Oh, yeah.
One was the Queen, and one was Woody Allen. And so it was quite weird to suddenly, you know, wake up.
That's a weird combo. I mean...
well, it's very weird when they get mixed up, as dreams do, you know.
I can see Woody Allen there with a score sheet and the Queen doing somersaults.
Yeah, that's right.
And Olga trying to catch her. That's weird. Why? Serious? You're being serious about this?
Yeah, I have had that. I don't know why those dreams keep recurring and recurring. In fact, I was telling this story on the radio in Atlanta, in America, a couple of days ago. And it was a phone-in radio show. And with questions for me. And who should call in but Olga Korbut, who now lives in Atlanta.
I thought you were going to say the Queen.
No, alas. But she might call in after this, you never know.
She might. A lot of people are going to see the movie, so they should. Will you thank Hugh Grant, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you, Hugh. Thank you very much.